Have you ever judged someone only to discover how completely wrong you were? That's exactly what happened to Melissa Carter when she encountered single father James Wilson at their children's school. What began as a tense misunderstanding transformed into something neither of them expected. If this story touches your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us to look beyond first impressions. Melissa Carter was having the worst Monday of her life. Her alarm had failed to go off, her coffee maker had sputtered its last breath, and her normally cooperative 5-year-old daughter, Lily, had chosen today of all days to stage a full-blown tantrum about wearing the unicorn sweater that now had a mysterious stain on the sleeve. By the time she rushed into her daughter's kindergarten classroom, 15 minutes late for the parent-teacher conference she'd rescheduled twice already, her normally impeccable appearance was disheveled, and her patience was hanging by a thread. "I'm so sorry I'm late, Ms. Peterson," Melissa apologized breathlessly as she entered the classroom, finding the teacher sitting at her desk with a patient smile. "It's been one of those mornings." "No problem at all, Mrs. Carter." "I understand completely," Ms. Peterson replied warmly. "Actually, I have another parent coming in about 10 minutes, so we'll need to keep this brief." Melissa nodded, trying to compose herself as she sat in the tiny chair across from the teacher's desk. As Ms. Peterson began discussing Lily's progress, Melissa found her attention wandering to the classroom walls, covered with colorful artwork and alphabet charts. She was exhausted. Between her demanding job as a marketing executive, the recent divorce that had left her a single mother, and the constant juggling act that was her life, these moments of stillness were rare and dangerous. They allowed the weight of everything to catch up with her. "Mrs. Carter?" Ms. Peterson's voice broke through her thoughts. "Did you hear what I said about Lily's reading progress?" "I'm sorry," Melissa said, straightening in the uncomfortable child-sized chair. "Could you repeat that?" Before Ms. Peterson could respond, there was a soft knock at the door. A tall man with dark hair and kind eyes peeked in, a little girl with pigtails hiding shyly behind his legs. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said. "We can wait outside." "Actually, Mr. Wilson, we're just finishing up," Ms. Peterson replied. "Mrs. Carter, thank you for coming in. Please feel free to email me if you have any other questions about Lily's progress." Melissa gathered her purse and stood, feeling flustered at being dismissed so quickly. As she turned to leave, she noticed the man, Mr. Wilson, glancing at her. Or rather, she thought he was glancing at her chest. The button-down blouse she'd hastily thrown on that morning was perhaps a size too small, and in her rush, she hadn't noticed that one of the buttons had come undone. Already on edge from her terrible morning, Melissa felt a flash of indignation. She'd dealt with enough leering men in her professional life to recognize that look. "Eyes up here," she snapped, loud enough that Ms. Peterson looked up in surprise. The man's eyes widened, and a flush crept up his neck. "I'm sorry, but you have a..." He gestured vaguely toward her blouse. Melissa glanced down and realized with mortification that not only was a button undone, but there was also a large coffee stain spreading across the front of her white blouse. Heat rushed to her face as embarrassment replaced anger. "You have a stain," he finished quietly, his voice gentle and without judgment. "I thought you might want to know before your next meeting. I always keep baby wipes in my car for emergencies. They're surprisingly good at getting out fresh coffee stains. I'd be happy to grab some for you." Melissa stood frozen, the unjustified accusation hanging in the air between them. The little girl behind him peered up with curious eyes, and Melissa felt even worse knowing a child had witnessed her rudeness. I'm sorry," she stammered. "That was completely uncalled for." The man smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. "No harm done. I'm James Wilson, by the way. And this is my daughter, Emma." "Melissa Carter," she replied, still mortified. "And I would actually really appreciate those baby wipes, if it's not too much trouble." "Not at all," James said. "Emma, why don't you go say hello to Ms. Peterson while I help Mrs. Carter?" As they walked to the parking lot, an uncomfortable silence settled between them. Melissa felt compelled to explain herself. I'm sorry again for snapping at you. It's been a rough morning, but that's no excuse. James retrieved a pack of baby wipes from his meticulously organized SUV. We all have those days. Single parenting isn't exactly a walk in the park. You're a single dad? Melissa asked, accepting the wipes gratefully. For years now, he nodded. Emma's mom left when she was 2. Said she wasn't cut out for motherhood. Something in his matter-of-fact tone, devoid of bitterness, made Melissa look at him more closely. His clothes were simple but neat, jeans and a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. A colorful friendship bracelet adorned his wrist, clearly a child's handiwork. I'm sorry to hear that, Melissa said, dabbing at her blouse. I'm recently divorced myself. 6 months ago. The first year is the hardest, James offered. It gets better, though not always in the ways you expect. There was wisdom in his words that resonated with Melissa. She'd been so caught up in her own struggles that she hadn't considered others might be walking similar paths. Thank you for these, she said, handing back the wipes. And for being so understanding about my rudeness. We're all just doing our best, James replied with that same genuine smile. Some days that looks better than others. As Melissa walked to her car, she found herself thinking about James Wilson's kindness in the face of her unfair accusation. It had been a long time since someone had extended such simple compassion to her without expecting anything in return. The next time Melissa saw James was at the school's fall festival 2 weeks later. She was manning the face painting booth, a volunteer position she'd reluctantly accepted when the PTA president had cornered her after drop-off one morning. Lily was off with her friends, leaving Melissa alone with her paints and a line of excited children. Well, if it isn't the baby wipe savior, she said when James appeared with Emma in tow. He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. I see the stain came out. Crisis averted. Thanks to you, Melissa replied. Emma, would you like your face painted? The little girl nodded shyly, climbing onto the chair. Can I have a butterfly? Absolutely, Melissa said, selecting her brushes. As she painted delicate wings across Emma's cheeks, she found herself stealing glances at James. He watched his daughter with such open adoration that it made something twist in Melissa's chest. You're really good at that, James commented as she added the finishing touches. Marketing executive by day, face painter by, well, also day, but only when coerced by overzealous PTA moms, Melissa joked. Impressive resume, James replied. I'm just a high school history teacher. Much less glamorous. A teacher? That explains the patience, Melissa said. I would have told me off for being so rude that day. James shrugged. Teaching teenagers has given me a thick skin and a lot of perspective. Plus, I could tell you were having a rough day. Daddy, look! Emma exclaimed, examining her reflection in the small mirror Melissa provided. I'm beautiful. You certainly are, sweetheart, James agreed, his eyes crinkling at the corners when he smiled. As they walked away, Melissa found herself watching them go, struck by the easy affection between father and daughter. It was so different from her own tense relationship with her ex-husband, who had always treated parenting as an inconvenience rather than a privilege. The weeks that followed brought more encounters with James and Emma. There was the time Melissa's car wouldn't start after a PTA meeting, and James appeared with jumper cables and a thermos of hot chocolate. Then the rainy afternoon when he shared his umbrella with her as they both waited for their children after school. Small moments that gradually built into something Melissa hadn't expected, friendship. It was during one of these moments, as they watched their daughters playing together at the park, that James finally told her his full story. Emma's mother and I were college sweethearts, he said, his eyes following his daughter as she climbed the jungle gym. We got married young, had Emma right away. I thought we were happy, but I guess Diane had different expectations about what family life would be like. What happened? Melissa asked softly. James sighed. She started staying out late, coming home smelling like bars and other men's cologne. When I confronted her, she said she felt trapped. That she loved Emma but wasn't ready to be tied down. One day, I came home from work to find a note in half-empty closets. That's terrible, Melissa said, thinking of her own ex-husband who had at least had the decency to tell her to her face that he'd found someone else. It was hard, James admitted. Not just the practical aspects of suddenly being a single parent, but watching Emma look for her mother in every room for months afterward. Kids are resilient, though. Eventually, she stopped asking when Mommy was coming home. How did you manage? I mean, emotionally? James was quiet for a moment. I had to decide what kind of father I wanted to be, one who was bitter and angry, or one who could show Emma that even when life doesn't go as planned, you can still find joy and purpose. I chose the latter. It wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. His words stayed with Melissa long after they parted ways that day. She thought about them as she tucked Lily into bed that night, as she sat alone in her kitchen with a glass of wine, as she scrolled through work emails that once seemed so important but now felt hollow compared to the weight of James's quiet wisdom. The friendship between Melissa and James deepened as autumn turned to winter. Their daughters became inseparable, which meant playdates and shared school pickups became regular occurrences. Melissa found herself looking forward to these moments more than she cared to admit. It was during the school's winter concert that something shifted. The auditorium was packed with parents clutching programs and smartphones, ready to record their children's performances. Melissa had arrived early to secure a good seat, but as the lights dimmed, the chair beside her remained empty. She felt a pang of disappointment, wondering if James and Emma had decided not to come. Just as the music teacher stepped onto the stage, she felt someone slide into the seat next to her. Sorry I'm late, James whispered. Emma couldn't find her special hair ribbon. The purple one with silver stars? Melissa whispered back. Lily has the same one. They must have switched at the last playdate. James chuckled softly. The things that constitute emergencies in a 6-year-old's world. As the kindergarten class filed onto the stage, Melissa felt James's arm brush against hers in the cramped seating. A small, electric current seemed to run through her at the contact. When Lily and Emma stepped forward for their duet, a slightly off-key but enthusiastic rendition of Frosty the Snowman, Melissa felt tears spring to her eyes unexpectedly. They're amazing, aren't they? James murmured, his voice filled with pride. They really are, Melissa agreed, surreptitiously wiping at her eyes. After the concert, as they waited for their daughters in the hallway, James turned to her with an uncharacteristic hesitation. I was wondering, he began, then stopped, running a hand through his hair. This might be completely inappropriate, and please feel free to say no, but would you and Lily like to join Emma and me for dinner this Friday? Nothing fancy, just pizza at our place. Melissa felt her heart skip a beat. Like a playdate? James met her eyes. Like a dinner. With the girls, yes, but also, with us. Are you asking me on a date, James Wilson? Melissa asked, surprised by her own boldness. I suppose I am, he replied, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Though I'm a bit out of practice. Then yes, Melissa said, returning his smile. We'd love to come. Friday arrived with a flurry of nervous energy. Melissa changed outfits 3 times before settling on jeans and a soft sweater, casual but flattering. Lily was ecstatic about spending the evening with Emma and insisted on bringing her entire collection of Barbie dolls. James's house was a modest 2-story in a quiet neighborhood not far from the school. As they walked up the driveway, Melissa noticed the basketball hoop, the well-tended flower beds, the wind chimes hanging from the porch, all signs of a home that was truly lived in and loved. Emma flung open the door before they could knock. You're here. Daddy made the pizza dough from scratch and it looks like alien slime. James appeared behind his daughter, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Thanks for that ringing endorsement, Em. He smiled at Melissa. Come in. It's not actually alien slime, I promise. The evening was nothing like the awkward first dates Melissa remembered from her post-divorce attempts at romance. There was no forced conversation, no uncomfortable silences. Instead, there was laughter as they all shaped their own personal pizzas, James and Melissa exchanging glances over the girls' heads as Emma created what she called a dessert pizza, with chocolate chips and marshmallows. After dinner, the girls disappeared into Emma's room to play, leaving the adults alone in the kitchen. Can I help with the dishes? Melissa offered, gathering plates from the table. You're a guest, James protested. I'm a friend helping out, Melissa countered, already running water in the sink. They fell into an easy rhythm, James washing, Melissa drying. It felt strangely intimate, this simple domestic task shared in comfortable silence. Thank you for tonight, Melissa said finally. Lily and I both needed this more than I realized. James handed her a dripping plate. I've been wanting to ask you over for a while. I just wasn't sure if it would be welcome. Why wouldn't it be? He shrugged. You're this successful career woman. I'm just a teacher with a mortgage and a minivan. Melissa set down the dish towel and turned to face him. James, do you know what I thought when I first really talked to you? After I got over my embarrassment about accusing you of staring at my chest? He raised an eyebrow. I'm afraid to ask. I thought, this man has figured something out that I'm still struggling with. You have this peace about you. This certainty in who you are and what matters. I've been chasing promotions and validation my whole life, and you've just been quietly building a beautiful life for you and Emma. James was silent for a moment, his eyes searching hers. It hasn't always been peaceful. There were nights I sat on the floor of Emma's room after she fell asleep, wondering how I was going to do this alone. Wondering if I was enough. But you did it anyway, Melissa said softly. That's what matters. We're both doing it, James replied. And maybe we don't have to do it alone. The moment hung between them, full of possibility. Melissa wasn't sure who moved first, but suddenly James's hand was on her cheek, and she was leaning into his touch. When their lips met, it wasn't the passionate, desperate kiss of new romance that Melissa had expected. Instead, it was gentle, questioning, full of the same patience and kindness that had drawn her to him in the first place. They broke apart at the sound of giggling. Emma and Lily stood in the doorway, hands over their mouths, eyes wide with delight. Daddy's kissing Lily's mom. Emma stage whispered. Does this mean we're going to be sisters? Lily asked excitedly. Melissa felt heat rush to her face, but James just laughed. It means we're all having a nice evening together, he said diplomatically. Now, who wants ice cream for dessert? As the girls cheered and ran to the freezer, James caught Melissa's eye and smiled, a private, hopeful smile that made her heart flutter. The months that followed were a gradual blending of lives. Weekend outings with all four of them became routine. James helped Lily build her science fair project. Melissa taught Emma how to braid her own hair. They created new traditions, Sunday morning pancakes, Friday movie nights, impromptu dance parties in James's living room. It wasn't always smooth. There were arguments about parenting styles, moments of insecurity when Melissa's ex-husband came to town.